In this video, I'm going to share with you 3 powerful questions that you can ask your worship team at your next worship rehearsal. Coming up. Hey, Spencer here from leadingworshipwell.com. This is the place where we talk about how to lead yourself well, lead your church well, and lead worship well. So if you're interested in that, click subscribe down below. Also, I wanted to let you know that starting next week, for that week, I'm going to be opening up the doors to Leading Worship Well worship team devotionals again. So if you didn't get a chance to join last time it was open, next week is your chance to join, especially as we head into this new year. I want to make sure that your team is led well. If you don't know what it is, it's a subscription to worship team devotionals that you get every single week. So you will never run out of a worship team devotional again. And these devotionals aren't just general Bible devotionals. You can find them all over the internet. These are specific for worship teams so that you can help your worship team grow in their musicianship, in their relationships with each other, and more importantly, their faith. So that's what these devotionals are designed to do. If you want to get more information on that, sign up for the wait list down in the description below, and you'll be the first to know when that comes out next week. But let's talk about these 3 powerful questions. You can use these in place of your worship team devotional this week. We're going to be talking about these 3 powerful questions that you can use to lead your team well. So let's talk about them. The first question is this, super simple. It's about us relating to our teams. I want you to ask this at your next worship team rehearsal. How can I serve you better? How can I serve you better? How can I make your job as a worship team member easier? How can I take stress off of you? What do you need from me? This just opens the door to your team feeling like they're heard and they have the opportunity to speak into the things that you're doing in your worship ministry. Maybe you learn that they need the songs a little bit earlier in the week. Or maybe you learn that they need a week off once a month, or whatever it is. Just say, how can I serve you better? Is there anything that I can do that would make your job easier? And then, of course, you actually have to take it into consideration and do it. But just ask that question, because that will make them feel valued and heard. And, oftentimes when I've asked that question before, people they say like, no, it's fine. But there's still value in that question because, like I said, they feel valued and heard, and they know that they can ask you for things, which is what we want as leaders, right? Like, we want to be open. We aren't just dictators who are saying this is the way we do things and you're going to do it my way or you can't be on the team anymore. We want people to come to us if they have a suggestion or something. So just ask that question. Super simple. How can I serve you better? Number 2 has to do with leading your people well. And we want to utilize the perspective of our team to do that. So at your next worship rehearsal, you could also ask this question. What was the most significant moment our church had in worship in the past year? That's the first part of the question. So I want you to think back. Were there any moments this year, and I'm saying this year because as of me filming this video, this is the last video of this year. So you're probably headed into the new year if you're watching this video when it came out. But even if you're not, if you're watching this in the future, this is still a good question to ask. What was the most significant moment in worship we had in church this year? And this gets them to think about those moments that have impacted and touched them. And maybe there was something cool that happened one Sunday. Maybe you had a unique element in your service, or maybe there wasn't anything unique about it other than the fact that God made himself abundantly known in that moment. But whatever it is, we want to hear those stories because we want to celebrate them, number 1. But then the follow-up question is, okay, what do we do to foster more of those moments? Because if this was an amazing moment, we want them to happen more often, right? So we want to try to dissect what happened, if anything, that we contributed to, what happened in that moment. That was powerful. And how can we do it again to have another powerful moment like that so we can continue to pour into our church in worship? So ask that question. What was the most significant moment our church has had in worship in the past year? And what can we do to foster more of those moments? And this gets your team to think like a worship leader too, right? Because they aren't just going to say, well, we played that one new song and that new song's really cool. Like, that's not ultimately what impacts your church. There's a lot more to it than that. So we get to put people in that mindset of worship leader. Let's move on to the final question. Finally, number 3 is just sort of a fun question that you can just throw out to your team and ask them, if someone new joined the worship team, what's one piece of advice you'd give them? Just sort of a fun, sort of an icebreaker question where people can keep it surface level if they want, but people can go deeper as well. And so it's just a good discussion question. It gets people, first of all, to think about, I feel like it puts them in a position of like they have something to offer, right? Like, they aren't just a worship team member, but they are a member on the worship team who has experience. So they think of the experience that they've had and what they've learned over the years. So it does that for them, but then they also get to share with the worship team, and you guys can build each other up, and that way they're hearing things from other people on the team, and it's not just you all the time. You can share your advice as well too, but if you're the leader, you're probably sharing your advice all the time, right? So we want to hear from other people on the team, because different people connect with different voices. So you might have said, learn your music and prepare and be on time 5 million times to your worship team, but when that other person on the worship team says it, then maybe your team will own it a little bit more. Or it could be anything else, like keep your eyes open when you lead worship. That's a good piece of worship leading advice. So just ask that question. If someone new joined the worship team, what's one piece of advice you would give them? So there they were, 3 questions, 3 powerful questions you can ask at your next worship team rehearsal. Maybe just pick one of them, see how it goes. I think a worship team devotional time should be like 10 or 15 minutes. And depending on your team, you might be able to talk about one of those questions for that long. So this could serve as your worship team devotional for this time. But if you want a steady pace of worship team devotionals and you never want to run out of worship team devotionals that lead your team well musically, relationally, and spiritually, if you never want to run out of those again, make sure to check out Leading Worship Well worship team devotionals. It's going to be open next week, and then it's going to close at the end of the week. So join the wait list down below. You'll be the first to hear when it opens, and you'll get reminders before it closes as well. So check that out. That might be good headed into the new year for you to have as a worship team leader. Other than that, thanks so much for joining me. Until I see you in the next video, keep leading worship well.